the maracas, I go chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom.
Welcome to No Laughing Matter with Cuba Pete, a show that takes a critical look at the disparities between medical school education and society's growing healthcare inequities. Join Dr. Pedro Cuba Pete Greer each episode as he interviews the experts working to transform medical education and ensuring that future doctors are trained to provide equitable and compassionate healthcare for all communities. Dr. Greer received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009, honoring his dedication to providing health care to underserved populations. As Dean of Roseman University College of Medicine in Las Vegas, Dr. Greer is committed to creating a medical school of the future where students embrace the need to unite the heart and science of healthcare. And now, the host of No Laughing Matter with Cuba Pete, Dr. Pedro Cuba Pete Greer.
Good day. Hi, I'm Pedro Jose Greer. They call me Joe, and welcome to Cuba Pete, No Laughing Matter. We're a podcast that's been around for a couple years now. I'm the dean at the Roseman University College of Medicine, and it's about what's going on in society, how that affects health, and how that should affect medical education. Well, we always have spectacular guests, and today we have one of the most spectacular. We have Trinh Dang, who is the Executive Director of NAMI, of Southern Nevada. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Mental illness happens to be, in my opinion, the #1 public health problem in this country, and perhaps other places in the world, but no other country of the industrialized world has the amount of mental illness that we do, and that we do not attend to. Mental illness within itself is a difficult issue to understand. It's difficult to see somebody going through it. And because we are a country of so many different cultures, there's also all these norms that go within cultures that inhibit taking care of somebody. Well, today we have this spectacular young woman, originally from California. I forgot the name, Garden Grove, got it. And what NAMI is a peer-led grassroots mental health not-for-profit that aims to support, educate, and advocate for individuals and families impacted by mental health. After completing her family-to-family training, which was a 12-week training in 2012, she began volunteering in 2013, and 4 years ago became the Executive Director for Southern Nevada, which is a major problem here because there's also a marked shortage of providers. She graduated with a BA in Liberal Studies from Cal State Long Beach and started grad school in school counseling, but ended up getting a job as a teacher. Then she took that and started off with that. Trinh, what you do is incredibly important, probably more so than what I do, or I can guarantee you more so than what I do. You directly take care of individuals and their families that have been affected by mental illness, and as I said, is the #1 problem in this country. Because remember, also from mental illness comes substance abuse, comes suicides, comes isolation. As a matter of fact, in 2017, there was a report that came out for the first time in the history of the United States of America, or in the 100 years since in the United States, we had not seen an increase in morbidity and mortality since 1917, during World War I and the other pandemic that occurred at that time, the Spanish flu. Interestingly, that whole thing was led by my generation, of men, the non-Hispanic white. So there were not a lot of minorities in there. But the 3 leading causes of death were suicide, opioid overdose, and alcoholic liver disease, all related to mental illness, and all in the boomer generation. Now, the difference at that time of the deaths, not of it being exposed to mental illness, but of deaths, because mental illness crosses all barriers, was they didn't go beyond high school. But understanding that and understanding how behavioral health also affects the morbidity and mortality of this country, what got you interested in mental health?
Yeah, I usually share that I was born into it. To be honest, I didn't know at the time, but growing up with family members that had mental health challenges And again, I didn't recognize all this until I was well into my 20s. But I got to see it up close and personal. And I had my own challenges of mental health since I was as young as I could remember, with anxiety, with signs of depression, suicidal ideation in middle school. Again, didn't recognize all this as a young kid, just thought everyone thinks this way, and I just didn't talk about it with anyone for over a decade. But it wasn't, I did actually start out college as a psychology major. So I was interested, and that's a whole nother story. That would take me a long time to share that, but a quick part of that was I found a psychology textbook in my old garage in about 8th grade, and I flipped through it and read through it and was really interested, and actually shadowed someone from college when I was in 8th grade in a psychology class. So that was the start of it, really. It planted a seed, but again, didn't really know it. But it wasn't until college, when after family crisis that, and by that time I had switched out of psychology and thought I wanted to be a teacher, went into education. But when I checked into the counseling and psychological services, that's when they gave me a NAMI brochure. And that's where I would say it really catapulted everything into what I do now, because I started out with volunteering first, and just thought, ever since I started teaching, I just thought, what can I do? Should I go back to school? Do I need to get my master's in psychology, or what is it that I need to do to get into mental health? But I didn't realize everything happens for a reason. So my presentation skills, my ability to teach and educate others really helped me in what I do now. But it was, like I said, growing up with family members and seeing it firsthand for myself was really what got me into the work that I do now.
Well, being so pleasant and brilliant, that doesn't hurt either. So you, as the Executive Director of NAMI of Southern Nevada, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, short-term definitely is to get our programs up and running, which we just launched a pilot program last year, and that was our Youth Peer Recovery Support Specialist program. So right now what we're doing, and historically NAMI hasn't served youth per se as a national organization. A lot of our programming was 18 and over. But ever since I started with NAMI over a decade ago, that's always been my vision of, how come I didn't know this when I was younger? How come I didn't get this when I was a teen? So what we did do last year, and along with our other affiliates in the state, was hired on 18 to 26-year-old young adults who have lived experience with mental health challenges that are doing well in recovery, and they go out and they run the groups for high school youth. So that's one of the projects that we're currently working on, and we're working to expand that, as well as getting peer recovery support specialists for adults in. So what we've always done is peer support. The new thing with it now is that there's a certification that goes along with it. So there's a 46-hour training, a 500-hour internship, and a whole board. They sit for an exam and all that. So that's the newest piece of what we're adding to our organization.
Do you think that these certified peer counselors, it would be a good idea to have them permanently in every single high school and middle school? Absolutely.
I mean, other states across the nation have already started this over a decade ago. We're just, a little bit more behind on the curve, but we're getting there. So short-term goals is to really launch these two programs, get it up and running in a way where we have an ongoing influx of peer recovery support specialists, because not only can they help serve our organization, but it's a workforce development where they can go out into the community, and they can actually get, if they're hired through hospitals or other clinics, there's Medicaid that could pay for a portion of that for peer recovery support specialists. They might be able to work in mobile crisis teams, and as we get crisis stabilization units up. So it's really part of the workforce development as well.
And it is, although sometimes I sit back as a physician and I think, if we keep going in the very traditional route, we're never going to meet the need.
No.
We have to be innovative. We have to come up with new ways of doing things. And NAMI would be the organization that would be in the front runner of doing this, I would think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have a national organization that we can tap into. So they're already working on a federal level, and we get to see what our other NAMI organizations are doing across the country and really use that as leverage to kind of create what we need here. But as far as long-term goals, it's really just to continue what we're doing and expand what we're doing.
Hopefully in the long term, you can reduce because you've taken care of the problem.
Exactly. Exactly. In nonprofit world, they say that we want to put ourselves out of business.
Right. Exactly right. And where do you get your funding from?
There's a variety of sources. So I would say a majority right now comes from federal or state funding, so grants and things like that.
And if somebody wanted to donate, how could they do that?
Absolutely. If you go to our website, NAMISouthernNevada.org, there's a Donate Now button. So we definitely do take donations. We did our NAMI walks for the first time last year in over a decade. So that's another huge social awareness, but also fundraiser for us. So donations, grants, foundations, it's majority of where we get our funding from.
Fantastic, fantastic. What is the most exciting project you're working on right now?
Oh, I would say the youth peer support specialist part. Just because, like I said, the younger we can get the youth to get them the support that they need. Because I just think back to myself.
How young should we be looking at this? I mean, should we be looking at kids in elementary school?
Honestly, yeah, I believe so. And other states have started doing it. So that's the social emotional learning component of it. Teaching young kids emotions at a young age, the vocabulary for it, how to address how they're feeling, and to be able to, because to be able to cope, they have to know and identify what's going on.
Right.
And honestly, as an adult, there were times when I struggled with that. I didn't learn that until maybe into my 30s of how to express myself.
Your family is from Vietnam.
Yes.
How does the Asian community approach being seen by a counselor or psychiatrist?
Depending on who you're talking to, but I would say generally overall, there's kind of that idea or thought of we're strong, we don't need help, we don't want to talk to someone. And at the same time, for those who are seeking help, who are open to it, depending on the generational gap too, sometimes there's a language barrier.
Very much so, yes.
Absolutely. So, I mean, but the majority, I would say, I know talking to my parents, it's that idea of I went through war, I almost died. Everything that I have here, I have a home, I have food. What else is there to be sad about? So there's a lot of that also comes up of why would I be sad now when I have everything I need compared to what I've been through? But I think that's maybe the misconception of we can have material things. Celebrities have millions of dollars and mansions, but celebrities still have mental health challenges.
Well, and one of the things that we found also in South Florida, with a group that did the surveys at the different schools, the issue of mental health was much higher in the private schools for various reasons. One was the pressure put upon the kids to get into, legacy schools or Ivy League schools and things of that nature, and the constant pressure that they had with all that. But this crosses all socioeconomic barriers.
Exactly.
It doesn't spare any of them. It's a virus that is non-discriminant. It goes through and does all that. Do you guys have an annual gala or anything like that, or?
Not a gala, not yet. Maybe sometime in the future.
Okay.
NAMI walks. Our walk is the first one that we're starting with, and then we're working on a peer-to-peer fundraiser later on this year as well.
Which sounds really, really exciting. As a medical educator, putting together a curriculum, what would you advise the medical school that we need to put in there?
I would say cultural humility, because mental health is approached by different cultures very differently. A very westernized approach is to talk therapy and medication, but that doesn't always work for everyone. We have some cultures that might look to spirituality, some cultures that might look to more holistic practices like acupuncture or breath work or mindfulness. And so we need to be accepting. What I advocate for is educate people on all the different options that are available and let people choose what works best for them. So the more that we can just let people know, here's different avenues, let us know what works for you, because we can't fit everyone into a box.
I love that approach. That really is remarkable. I mean, because traditionally in medicine, mental health is treated by chemicals. It's all biochemical, when it really isn't all biochemical. And one of the other concerns I have about the way we traditionally deal with mental illness is, number one, our system is horrible. First of all, very few psychiatrists and counselors take insurance. It's a cash pay business. So that eliminates a huge part of your society. The other one is they don't give an end point. They put you in therapy for as long as they can. What do you think of that?
I think it just depends because
On the individual.
yes, exactly. Some individuals might need more time. The recovery or healing journey is so individualized to each person, depending on their life experiences or adverse life experiences, maybe past traumas, their capacity at the moment. So it depends for each person how long it takes. For me, I started therapy in 2015, and it took me years. I finally stopped in 2022, but only because my therapist had transitioned out of her private practice. But it took me a long time of different modalities, of different healings. But the cash pay part, that's the part that's tough too, because if people don't have the money or funding for it, they can't get the help that they need. And I've been blessed and fortunate to be able to get the help that I need. But I know that not everyone has that opportunity too.
And we're talking about the general population. If you go into the incarcerated population, the issue of mental illness is off the wall,
Right.
as well as addictions. And just think, if we could treat and cure those, how empty we could make our prisons.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the other thing too is, I see this increasingly, at least they're speaking about it more, in athletes.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's been a topic that I forgot if I was watching something or reading something. I think it was a TV show I was watching about, and especially when athletes get injured too, and how much that impacts their mental
Or
health.
when they retire.
Right.
They've been super active in the middle of the spotlight, all of a sudden now it stops and you're in your 30s.
Yeah, I was talking to someone where, as we were sharing and talking about it, it's almost like comparative. I mean, it's not like they're going to war like a
Right.
veteran or a military person, but just the schedule that they're on while they're in the sport.
Right.
And then afterwards when you're having to stop, it's like getting back into civilian life.
Nobody's there to tell you what to do.
Right.
Which becomes very, very difficult. If somebody is suffering from mental health problems or perceives depression, anxiety, whatever is going on, suicidal ideations, what's the first step they need to take?
For me personally, I think learning about it helped a lot, because understanding what I was going through, because there was a period of time where I didn't know what was happening for myself, because I live with anxiety and depression. So understanding that, I would say get help, professional help, but that depends on if that person has insurance, if there's available providers.
If they have a provider.
Exactly.
And the interesting thing is, most mental health is treated by primary care doctors, which in all due respect are not trained in that specifically. Right. The complaint is always, who do we refer them to? Who do they go see? So they keep piling on other pills and things of that nature. What can we do to fix that instead of just hiring more, which is not an easy thing to do?
Right. I think that's the part where peer support comes in. If we can look at it from a public health perspective on how can we prevent and educate the masses. So where other states are doing the social emotional learning for young children, where we start them from an early age with coping skills, with things like journaling, with things like addressing what's going on by sharing our emotions, learning about it, mindfulness. So
the approach has to actually be non-medical, in the hopes of preventing medical intervention.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
so that's something that's really, really important. And that's something that doctors need to learn. Now, do you think that every primary care doctor should have NAMI literature in their office?
Yes. Primary care, mental health providers.
But in particularly primary care, since it's the majority of it.
Yes.
Let's get that done.
Yes.
Let's get that literature out there.
We will order those brochures and get them out there.
Well, there's a whole world to save, and you guys seem to be doing it. What are your plans for the future?
Me personally or NAMI?
Both.
For me, just honestly continuing what we're doing to grow the awareness of mental health. And I really want to see more of the holistic practices incorporated into our recovery and healing system. For NAMI, I think the more that we can get our message out there to let people know that they're not alone, because I just think of the bubble that we've created in a good way.
Yeah.
Because we have staff, volunteers, interns that come to our organization, our families, our peers, the people we serve, where we're so comfortable talking about mental health and sharing with each other so we could be supportive And I just often think, what if we had a whole community, a whole entire city that was that way? So that is my vision and dream of saying it's not a taboo subject to talk about. It's not meant to be hidden away and shamed about. The more we actually open up, that's what helps us get to the other side of healing.
I know that my own culture, the Hispanics, are the least receptive to being seen by a mental health specialist. But once again, it's a taboo subject. You know, be strong. Not unlike your culture.
Right.
The other difference is the Hispanic community in this country has all the reason in the world not to trust the medical community.
Right.
It's not like we've been receptive to their needs, and specifically during the pandemic. Now, did you see mental health issues skyrocket during the pandemic or after?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's just so many things going on, whether people are losing their jobs, they're losing their loved ones. There was a lot of uncertainty. And I think another big part too is if people were sitting at home, I think a lot of times we keep ourselves busy to not think about the things that might have happened 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
When you're sitting there, those things start to resurface. Or at least I know that was true for me.
And also with the kids that are used to going to school on a schedule and interact with other people.
Right.
That was taken away. In essence, the pandemic really set us back and put more emphasis on the importance of NAMI.
Yes, and mental health.
And
or it put us forward because now people are more open about talking about mental health.
That's a very good point. It put us forward with a lot larger patient population. From a medical educator, I think the importance of mental health has to be emphasized in every single case that a student presents or is presented to the student. The issue of mental health has to be part of that case. I'm a gastroenterologist, hepatologist, liver digestive disorders. And I will tell you that about 80% of my patients manifested their GI symptoms because of behavioral health issues. There's a gentleman that does TMS, that transcranial magnetic sensory, and he did it. He was a neuroradiologist for children, so he would take care of cancer kids with brain tumors, and he saw all these different changes. Then he had a son with autism, and he started the TMS with his son, who is now graduating from college. And it also, what I found fascinating with that case was it cured his leaky bowel. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is the gastrointestinal system, the mouth to the anus, is second only to the central nervous system in its innervation. So things are manifested in the GI tract, which are 3 separate organs that join together during embryologic development. So any sort of mental illness will manifest itself in the GI tract, whether it is abdominal pain, increased acid secretion, constipation, diarrhea, and all these things. But by doing TMS with his son and helping him, stabilize so that he could go to school, it also cured his GI tract. So mental illness affects so many parts of our body.
Absolutely. It's the brain-gut connection.
The brain-gut connection. When somebody is severely mentally ill or just mentally ill with depression or anxiety, exhaustion. The inability to concentrate on something. So it affects us then in our work life and our school life. Thus the importance of what we're doing. So we need to say, yes, this is a problem in America. Why? Because we have human beings. And it's just not up to the medical profession to resolve it, because obviously we haven't. But with organizations like NAMI, by looking at what you could do in education of a child to help prevent issues in the future, all of this should be taught to our parents.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
We're busy fighting at a national level all these other issues of pro-choice, pro-life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We need to start addressing issues for people that are here. We need to start addressing issues and particularly I see, start with parents. And then make sure that we get this somehow in the curriculum of K through 12, starting off in K. And I think what your organization is doing is just what needs to be done. And I think anybody out there that wants to support them, you should support them. This is NAMI, SouthernNevada.com. Did I get that right?
.org.
.org.
Close.
Send money and send a lot of money.
Thank you for that.
No, you guys deserve that type of support. What I'd like to do in the future is have you back. And if you want to bring somebody with you, bring somebody with you. It's a peer counselor. It would be great to have a peer counselor to talk about what got them there and how they're helping others. And they're making this world a better place. So if you were to tell me what I need to do in medical school, what do these students need to learn besides we're not the only option of treatment? They have to realize what a big problem it is. It's just not a course, how it interacts with every single interaction with your patient, and how to be prepared to deal with issues of mental illness after perhaps you give somebody a diagnosis. Not just them, but their family members too. So I really enjoyed your advice with that. That's going in, by the way.
Thank you.
And probably having you come over to the medical school on a regular basis so that students could be educated to NAMI.
Absolutely. We'd be more than happy to.
And since our community, we're a community-dependent medical schools, and we have Genesis and all our other teams out there in the neighborhoods, and we do household-centered care, you have a whole army of people that are spreading the word. Back in our prior institution, when we had a similar program, we would actually do counseling, as long as it was not a domestic issue, in the household.
And that's needed.
And not only that, after we'd be done, we would go talk to the rest of the family members to let them know what was going on so they could understand and be supportive. So we need new interventions. We need brains like yours to tell us in my profession what we need to teach and how to teach it. But we need brains like yours that have the heart that you have to turn around and say, I can make a difference. Thank you so much for what you do for our community and what you do for individuals. And anything we can do to support you, we're here.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And thank you for being on the show.
Yes.
And with that, from Studio A in Las Vegas, Nevada, we bid goodbye.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, like, and comment on your favorite podcast platform. If you'd like to support the groundbreaking work that Dr. Greer is doing at the Roseman University College of Medicine, please donate at the link below. Thanks for tuning in to No Laughing Matter with Cuba Pete, as together we work to unite the heart and science of healthcare to serve all in our communities. See you next time.